In this video, you're going to learn how to set up a 404 page for your Express server. So when things go well, we'll still show the user the content they were looking for, but if someone provides a URL and we're not sure what to show them, we'll show them the 404 page instead. So right here, localhost 3000/help, that is something we explicitly set up support for in Express. Let's try another URL which is not going to work. Over here, that would be something like localhost 3000/ pretty much anything. As an example, /me. We do not have support for /me in our server, and when I try to visit the page, you can see that we get a generic text-based error message, and this is coming from Express. Cannot get /me. So instead of showing this message, we want to show a nice, helpful page. We could render some HTML to show them a message, and we could even include links back to the home page so they can find a page that actually does exist and then look for whatever they're looking for again. Now, to set up the 404 page for routes which we don't have support for, we're going to need to customize our Express application just a little bit. What we need to do here is set up another route handler using app.get. We've used that plenty of times before to set up route handlers like this one for the route, this one for /about, /help, and /weather. At the end, below all of those, just before we start up the server, we're going to add one more call to app.get. And in a moment, we'll talk about why it needs to come last. Now, right here, we're going to pass in the same two arguments we've used every time we called app.get. The first is the string, the second is the function. And that function is still going to get called with the request object and the response object, which we'll be able to use to do whatever it is we need to do. Now, the real question here is, what do we use as the URL we're trying to match? Previously, we explicitly typed out the URL. For this, there is no one explicit match. It's everything else, everything that isn't listed up above. To match everything else, Express provides us with the wildcard character we can use in our URLs, and right here, this means match anything that hasn't been matched so far. Now, what do we want to do with all of that other stuff? Well, in a few moments, we'll render a real handlebars HTML page. For the moment, though, we can just send back a message as text. So I'll use response.send to send back a string saying something like my 404 page. Let's go ahead and save app.js and see what happens. I'll refresh /me, and what do I get? I get my content. I get my 404 page showing up. If I refresh /help, I would expect to still see what I have here, and if I refresh things, that is exactly what's happening. So now we have to answer the question, why does this work? Why does app.get need to come last after all other routes are set up? Well, this has to do with how Express is going to end up matching the incoming request with the correct route handler. When Express gets an incoming request, it starts to look for a match. So as an example, let's use /help. Way up at the top, it's going to look through how you set up the application in order. So first up, it's going to look for a match in the public folder. There is no /help, so it needs to continue looking for a match. Next up, it looks at this handler for the route. This is not the route, so this is not a match. Next up, it looks at /about. This is not a match either, since the URL is /help. Then it looks at this one, and this is a match. /help matches up with the URL on the incoming request. That means the help page gets rendered and it stops. It does not look at the other matching routes below because it already found its match. So it doesn't need to continue to look, and it won't. Now what happens for a page like /me? Right here, it's once again going to start way up top. It's going to look for a match in the public folder, which it won't find. It's then going to go through all of these routes, none that match. The route, /about, /help, and /weather. None of those are matches. It then finds this route handler, and with the wildcard character, we're saying everything's a match, and that's exactly what happens. /me is considered a match, and the 404 page gets sent back. So there we go. That's all it takes to set up a route handler for a 404 page in Express. Now, the wildcard character doesn't have to sit all alone there in the URL, and to explore that, let's go ahead and work through one more example before I set you off on your challenge to actually render a HTML 404 page. Let's go ahead and start with /help. So imagine that we have a website and /help serves as a sort of starting point for our help documentation. There is no specific advice there, but it links off to other articles. Maybe one of them is something like /data. We visit /data, and this is a real page which shows us some information about the data being used. Now, maybe there are other URLs after /help that do not exist, like /help/test. We don't have an article for that. That doesn't exist, and the 404 page shows up. Now, we could continue to show the generic 404 page, or we could show one to someone we know is trying to look for help because they are on /help, but are not finding the article they expected. This could allow our messaging to be a bit more specific, and obviously it'll allow us to explore a new technique with Express. So over inside of our app.js file, just before our 404 handler, we're going to add just one more call to app.get. Right here, a URL followed by the function, and this function, like all of them, we get the request and the response. Now, we are going to use the wildcard character inside of here, but it's not going to be the only thing. I'm actually going to start with /help/ then the wildcard character. This is going to match any page that hasn't been matched so far that starts with /help/. Right here, we could once again use response.send to just send back a simple text-based message, and I could say something more specific, like help, article not found. Perfect. Now if we save app.js, we can see this showing up when I visit /help/test. I refresh the page, and what do I get? I get help article not found. Now if I go to a route that does exist, like the /help route, I do indeed still get that content. So by using the wildcard character, we can match either every request, or we can match a bunch of requests that match a specific pattern, in this case, matching anything after /help/ as long as it wasn't matched previously. So if I did have a handler for /help/data, that could still run, and this would be a catch-all for help 404s, and this would be a catch-all for any 404 that occurs. Now it's challenge time, and down below I have some comments outlining what I'd like you to do. Right here, your goal is to create and render a 404 page with handlebars. That's going to be for generic 404 errors and for 404 errors related to help documentation. So step 1. You're going to create a single new view in that views directory, and that HTML page is going to render the header and the footer. Now, right in between the header and footer, you should use the partials for both of those. It's going to render an error message, which will also be provided to the template. Now, the reason the specific view is going to have the error message provided is because we're going to provide different error messages depending on which one of these two fired. We will say page not found for generic 404 messages, and we will say help article not found if this is the handler that ends up running. So in the end of the day, when you visit a URL like /what, I would expect to see page not found. When you visit the URL /help/units, this handler is going to run, and I would expect to see the page rendering help article not found. So take some time to knock all of that out, and the hint is that you should only create a single new handlebars file. You want to set it up to be used in both situations, taking in the error as one of the data values passed to render. All right, knock that out, test your work, and when you're done, come back and click play. How'd that go? I'm going to kick things off by creating the new view we're going to need. Down inside of the views directory, I can create a new file, and we can call this something like 404.hbs. Now in here, we want a full HTML page. Remember, this is a view and not a partial. Now, maybe you built it up from scratch. If so, props to you. Maybe you copied and pasted one of the other views, gutting it and changing it to fit your needs. That would work as well. So right here, I could take the index page as an example. I could copy it. I could bring it over to the 404 page and change it to fit my needs. First up, we're not going to load the JavaScript file into this page, so I'll remove that. The only external file we're going to load in is our style sheet. And from there, we already have the header and footer in place, which is great. That brings us to step 2, making sure we render a message in between the two. So right here, inside of a paragraph, I'm going to provide the actual message. Now you could have called this anything you wanted to. I'm going to call mine error message perfect. Now we have this generic error page that can be used for both of our 404 routes. It's time to take things into app.js and actually swap out our response.send calls with response.render. I'm going to kick things off with the generic 404 page. So down below, I'll remove everything inside of the callback and I'll replace it with response.render. And in this case, what am I rendering? I am rendering the 404 view we created down below. And what data am I providing? Well, I know I need to provide title and name because those are used by the header and the footer. And I also want to provide a value for my error message, which I just set up support for. So right here, title, I could say something like 404. Name, I'll continue to put my name as the person responsible for the page. Then after that, we're going to set up error message matching up exactly with what we used inside of the view, and we can pick a message for this one. Now for the generic 404, something like page not found would get the job done. Before we go any further, let's test out our work. I'm going to head into the browser and go to a page like /what, which does not exist. When I do, what do I get? I get 404, page not found, and I could then click a link over to a page that does exist, which is great. From here, let's go ahead and make sure that when someone visits a bad help article, they get the 404 page, but with a different message. So for that, we're going to remove response.send, and I will replace it with response.render. Once again, we are still rendering that 404 page, just with different content. Right here, let's provide that content. Title. I could say something like 404 or 404 help. Name. I'll stick with the same value we've used before, and then error message, and this is going to change. Instead of printing page not found, I'd like to go ahead and print help article not found. So right here, inside of quotes, help article not found. Excellent. So when someone has a generic 404, they get this. When it's a help specific 404, they get what we have above. Now we can test things out, making sure the help 404 works. I'm going to remove the challenge comments. I'm going to ensure that all files are saved, and then we're going to move over into the browser. /help/data would get the job done, and right here, I see help article not found, which is fantastic. From there, I could click over to the help page, and I could view an article that actually does exist. So using the wildcard character with Express is going to allow us to set up more complex match routing. Instead of just matching exact routes, we can provide the wildcard to match a wider range of URLs. All right, that is it for this one. I'll see you next time.